I want to talk about incels. I've been wanting to talk about them for a long ass fucking time because on X, I would just see a bunch of shit posted about like how it's all over. You need to be black pilled. You need to be fucking enlightened about the fucking Tinder dating match statistics. This is all bullshit to me, okay? This is complete bullshit. Most statistics, honestly, are bullshit. I have really just two main problems with statistics, okay? Or rather, I also take issue with the way that people use statistics to inform their decision making. Like, let's say that somebody wants to know if they have a higher or lower likelihood of getting a golden trophy, okay? Like, why does that matter, okay? Whether it's 99% or 0.001%, you still might as well just do your 100%, right? Regardless, okay? Sure, it'll inform you on like the amount of effort that you probably need to put in or the certain things that you might need to do in order to get that golden trophy, but ultimately it still doesn't change the fact that you have to do something if you want to get it. So statistics, honestly, in my opinion, do not serve a useful purpose when it comes to getting something I really want. Because this also follows very neatly into my other criticism of statistics, and that's that if you're a person that is 1 in a trillion or whatever it is, right? I'm using statistics for this, sure, or probability, which is part of statistics. That if you're really such a unique and special individual that was brought here on planet Earth, and the culmination of your life experiences have led you to the person that you are right now, then I honestly think that statistics cannot account for that, okay? We don't have the technology to do that yet, number one. And number two, does it matter if we have it or not? Because even though people might disagree with me, I believe we have a high level of free will, okay? I used to be like a super staunch determinist, thinking that every single cause must result in a predictable action or result. But honestly, I have found myself deriving more utility by believing I have as much free will as possible by assigning myself such a high level of responsibility and agency that for me it's simply useless for me to believe that I have no free will, right? Even if intellectually I might agree that I have no free will, in my emotions, in my actions, in my thoughts, and my feelings, I believe I have free will, right? And who's to say that we don't, right? Who's to say that, necessarily speaking, because of the laws of physics, when it comes to both classical physics and quantum physics, right? Regardless of any of that, regardless of how many times you're put into a simulation and you're made to, and regardless of how many times you're put into a simulation with the exact same variables, with the exact same conditions, regardless, of course, under determinism, it should follow that you have the same outcome, right? And what people get mistaken about free will is that it has nothing to do with randomness, right? Free will has nothing to do with, like, just because you run this simulation over and over and over again, that somehow it's going to be different every single time, or it's going to be slightly similar in varying ways, right? It has nothing to do with any of that, because randomness, it does not equate free will. It's simply just a false equivocation, right? Free will really is just the conscious process, and I suppose you could call it a meta-conscious process too, if you really want to get into it, of deriving all of the information gathered throughout the period of your life and evaluating a decision that you're about to make based upon that information and based upon like all of the sensory input that you're receiving right at this very moment, right? And it's important to mention consciousness in this because consciousness is a phenomenon, right? It's something that occurs. We don't exactly know why it occurs, but we have sort of an okay understanding of how it could come to be about, the connection of various neurons and synapses and its structure and whatnot. I think that the complexity and No. I think that the structure of neurons and their ability to receive certain kinds of input from certain kinds of organs and to communicate with one another in the brain, I think that consciousness itself is atemporal. It almost exists. Well, actually, I shouldn't say atemporal. It feels like it has properties. It seems that it has properties that are not linear, like they're not constant, right? That your perception of time can change and it can ebb and flow. When you're having a good time, things seem to be going at a much faster pace. When you're bored, of course, you're going to be thinking the time is going a lot slower, right? So in this way, we can say that consciousness itself and its perception of time can be distorted or altered depending on the feeling of the person, which also depends on their internal mind state and their external environment. Actually, recently I've been playing Subahibi, right? It's a really good game, by the way. You guys should go play it. Like, seriously, I highly recommend it so far. I'm on, like, I think I just started chapter 3. But in the visual novel, it talks about how, well, the main character, Yuki, talks about how she like ponders about whether or not there is a separation between the self and the environment, right? At what point do you separate you and not you? And I think it's a very interesting question because I feel like I've sort of developed my own answer for it. We are part of the environment and the environment is part of us. The environment influences us and we influence the environment. This sort of reminds me of how when you take a look at certain genes, you can determine with some level or a high level of probability their political leanings. And I don't necessarily think this discounts the idea of free will at all, simply because your attitudes can be changed and molded and shifted into various things, depending on various things, right? It's not just your genetics. Your genetics have a part to play in it, but I don't really necessarily think it's like that clear cut and dry. I think that certain genetics make it more likely, of course, as I said earlier, but they also found that if you're in like a dirty environment, if you're in a place that smells bad, right, you tend to vote more conservatively. And they also found, I think, that in countries that were riddled with infestation, plague, disease, epidemics, or whatever, right? Epidemics. That they tended to vote for more authoritarian governments, more dictatorships, right? So there's this need for order and stability, and there's this need for there's such a high need for cleanliness. Cleanliness again ties in with order. And well, actually no, not all the time. You can have a super clean room but have everything super cluttered. So what am I saying here? Well, regardless, I don't really know. I'm just kind of speaking right now, but oh yeah, I wanted to talk about fucking incels, and here I am talking about I just went off into like 50 billion different topics, and I completely forgot I was like wanting to talk about incels. Well, anyways, free will is much more interesting. Talking about like how statistics can be retarded is way more interesting than whatever it is that I had in mind for incels. Okay, I literally had a Word document, or not a Word, like a text document open, like literally detailing what I wanted to talk about and just kind of like putting in my own critiques. But it's way too logical, it's way too structured, it's way too autistic. I think I'm better off just not even saying it at all. I mean, fuck, dude, like it's just super autistic. It's super like into the details. It's super like just really into it, and you know what? I don't even find it interesting anymore. I'm just not gonna do it. I'm just not gonna do it. Well, anyways, guys, look into fucking Subahibi. Look into free will, I guess. Ask yourself that question, or don't really do it. It's honestly a fucking waste of time. Okay, it's a waste of time. I was thinking about it when I was like 16 or 17 years old. I learned about determinism. I kind of freaked out. And at the end, I've just ended up coming to the conclusion that it doesn't really matter if I have it or not. I just have to do what I want. And that knowing about free will or not knowing about free will is honestly really useless to me. Because well, it's actually more fun to talk about than it is to actually know the answer. Because I don't actually know if like my answer is not going to be the same as your answer. Okay, like when I tell you that my answer is that it doesn't matter to me, don't think it doesn't matter to you. You'll probably just don't think it doesn't matter to you. Just if you feel like it matters to you, then do it. Just fuck, dude. Whatever. The topic of free will is really, really interesting to talk about. It's really engaging. I really, really like it. And, I kind of don't really talk about it with people that much. It sucks. Do I think that there's more nature versus nurture? Do I think that there's more nurture versus nature? Fucking whatever. Usually, if you're talking about nature versus nurture, if you're talking about any of these things, it's usually because it's related to a core topic that was prior to you talking about nature versus nurture. And I think that solving that core topic is more important than that. But if you're just talking to talk and you're just like exploring ideas that may or may not arrive to a truth, and it may or may not arrive closer to it, then fuck it. It's fun. I like it. Okay. I like it. It may never go... It may never be answered. We may never have the answer. Because... what is free will? Let me know down in the comments. Peace out.